Penny the first minute.
Exactly.
The second.
There we go. Now we're talking. All right, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and get this meeting underway. Thank you for joining us. Yvette, could we have a call to order? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Burling? Here. Commissioner Brzezowski?
Present.
Commissioner Mickey?
Here.
Commissioner Jerry. Chair Myers.
Here.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Rhea?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, Jerry. All right, we'll begin with public appearances. Under the Brown Act, public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this legislative body. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements of the Brown Act, then that speaker will be muted. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern, not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comment shall be limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their names so that they may be identified in the minutes of the meeting. With that in mind, I'll open up to chambers for anyone that would care to make a public appearance.
Hello, Brian Sowers, a resident of Carmel and former Forest and Beach Commissioner. I wanted to bring into this commission the issue around tree fees. A neighbor of mine recently had a dead tree in their yard, and I know we had talked as a commission that we were going to work to reduce fees for people to take damaged or dead trees off their property. And currently, right now, it costs $195 for the forester to visit the property and $660 to remove a tree, totaling $855 to just have a tree removed if it's dead. That's 3 to 4 times what any other city charges in Monterey County, and I think it's unreasonable that we continue to have these fees for our residents. I think it's not meeting the needs of the forest to take away dead trees in this community. On number 2, my topic was in the consent agenda for this month's council meeting, there was a consent for a $450,000 contract with EMC to do beach study, a report that was a follow-on to the $175,000 that we previously paid them for our beach infrastructure report. I wanted to make sure that the Forest and Beach Commission is aware of this consent to sign another contract with the same group who we had issues with the quality of their reports for the $175,000 for this next report on infrastructure needed at the beach. This is, in my view, a considerable amount of money to spend, probably the most we've spent at the beach in over 10 to 15 years. And I think it requires a little more time and effort on all people to take a look at this contract, and is it really the group we want to have doing it, and what are we getting out of it that's going to help us fix the disaster down at the beach. Item 3 that I wanted to do was, again, I didn't get the opportunity in a public forum to state my reasons for resigning from the Forest and Beach Commission. I wanted to at least publicly put, because I know the Pinecone had some information on this, but I wanted to reemphasize that my reasons for leaving the Forest and Beach Commission were because I really felt that the Public Works Director did not respect our commission as a body to give information to both the City Council and the residents of this town, as well as my own opinions with regards to matters that came before the Forest and Beach Commission. Additionally, the finer straw for me was when Director Herreri reported to both the California Coastal Commission, the Department of Fish and Game, and the Monterey Sanctuary that Dale Byrne and myself were illegally going to do work down on the beach that was counter to any law in the city of Carmel, which was untrue. And I really was very taken aback by the fact that he would report that to those committees or organizations and not follow through with a rebuttal or at least a counter email to them stating the fact that he was incorrect in his assessment, that Dale Byrne and I had never done any work down there and were volunteering to do work down at the beach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Anyone else from Chambers like to make a public appearance?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Melanie Billig. I'd just like to comment on a couple of things that are concerning me. Number one, the tree protection on construction sites in town. I would hope that all of you would keep your eyes open to this issue. Generally, I think the Forestry and Public Works does a good job of that. However, in the last couple of months, there's been a huge problem up on Trailview. And the House has been putting up an ADU for the last year, 2 years. And while we don't really have control over what happens to the ADU itself, we control, the city does, the perimeter of that ADU. Well, up on that street, you wouldn't believe it, they have no tree protection, and they have not had any. And what happened one day, I was up there, and I noticed that the whole side of 2 mature redwoods, not huge redwoods, but just, mature redwoods, the roots had been slashed on the whole side of the tree for 2 beautiful trees that were a tremendous attribute to the kind of corner of the street. The people have a huge property, and they've got lots of trees. They managed, after I made a complaint to planning and tried to find out what was going on up there. I understand totally about the ADU. That's not the issue. The issue is that somebody dropped the ball when the construction first started, or the contractor and company took away the protection for the trees. After I complained, Justin went up and put some tarps over them, but the damage is done. And these people, you wouldn't believe, they don't live here naturally. They rarely come down. They have this humongous piece of property, and what they're doing is affecting the neighbors. The second thing I was wondering is replacement trees on the right-of-way. There are a lot of trees that have come down in the area that I typically walk daily, and I just don't know who decides the species that are going to be used as replacement trees in those areas. I think it's extremely important. All I've seen is non-natives planted, only 1 native in the larger area that I walk, and that tree somebody killed. So I'm just very concerned about what's going on in the public right-of-way. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Appreciate that. Anyone else from Chambers? Good afternoon, Dale.
Hi, Dale Byrne. I'm representing Carmel Cares for the first points, and after that, I'm going to be giving you some points as a resident. Thank you. Number one, and I might need an extra minute, and if I need to, Shirley's willing to cede her 3 minutes to me, so if you could give me an extra minute. As you probably know, Carmel Cares is a Keep America Beautiful affiliate, and at last week's canceled council meeting, Mayor Potter was to read a proclamation, which we're very excited about, regarding the city of Carmel accepting a pledge to participate in the Keep America Beautiful Greatest American Cleanup. This week, Carmel-by-the-Sea also became a Clean California community, which is a new program started by Governor Newsom, and we're one of the first cities to do that. Both of these programs allow us to get grants for funding and equipment to further our goal of becoming litter-free, planting trees and native plants, and other beautification activities to foster a vibrant, environmentally conscious, and interconnected community. We've already received a couple grants and have several more submitted. As part of this, next week I'll be attending the Keep America Beautiful National Conference in San Diego. This brings together hundreds of state, county, city, and 501c3 organizations to share experiences, provide education, and inspire the attendees, including me, to make a difference in their community. Number 2, at the next Forest and Beach Commission meeting, assisting the Public Works Department, Carmel Cares and Alan Wheat will be looking for approval for the Ocean Avenue Median Pilot Project on the median between Dolores and Lincoln. We will be simply confirming the use of boulders and native plants, which have been previously approved. In the meantime, Justin has developed a plan for trimming and removing trees that have issues. We'll be working with Cleve to identify in-ground infrastructure that we'll need to work around, and also locating the best source of boulders and native plants. We're also waiting on a grant that can subsidize this pilot median and have received positive indications from a previous donor for another one. I have number 3, but for purposes of time, I'm not going to read it, but it's really exciting, and I'll talk about it next time. Trust me. Number 4, we'll also be asking for your approval to add additional landscape barriers that were labeled as a Phase 2 project on the as-built plans for last year's barrier project, if you remember the redwood low fencing. This will be necessary to execute a path widening concept for which we'll be doing a pilot project just north of 13th for your review. Probably not in time for next meeting, but we'll be doing it. All right, the remaining of my time will be to bring up some areas of concern, and bear with me. Number 5, after months of investigation, we're still waiting for the city to find the plans for the existing wooden stairways on the beach. And I've tried everybody I can think of to go find them. It seems that this could be the only way to repair them without triggering a situation with the Coastal Commission. As we've said before, the person who managed the construction of them back in 1987 for $90,000 in 2 months is on our team and is available to assist on that project. It's becoming more critical given the damage that is occurring to those stairways this winter, with parts of them sitting on the beach now. Failure to act quickly will result in significant reduction in access to Carmel Beach. With budget meetings starting shortly, there isn't much time left, and I just might remind you, for all of you, to participate in the budget meetings, because it happens fast. Next thing you know, it's over, and we lost our chance. All right, so can I go on Shirley's time? Okay, number 6. Related to the above, there seems to be an attitude that providing access to beach stairways is a luxury. It's not. The city owns Carmel Beach, are stewards of that beach, and it is our job to properly maintain it. We make it seem that moving sand around is too difficult of a task. If we need to buy a skidster tractor to do that, then let's do it. Using donations to rent a tractor for a day or two is not the answer. If we need to raise $100,000 to acquire a tractor, then let's raise $100,000 and buy a tractor. We have plenty of very supportive and wealthy people who care about Carmel Beach, and a number of talented public works associates who know how to operate that equipment. Beach sand is dynamic and needs to be managed as such. Number 7, another related item. As a resident, I'd like this commission to explore the way that decisions are made regarding beach closures. The variety of ways that stairways and other beach access areas are blocked and messaged, and the degree of monitoring that should be done to give access at safe areas with immediate effect. A one-size-fits-all approach with little to no flexibility and a system that doesn't dynamically respond to changing conditions is reducing access to the beach, which is a very important service the city should be providing to everyone. When people come from long distances, it is quite disappointing, and many people with physical limitations simply cannot walk down and back up a steep, sandy slope when perfectly safe stairways are available on any given day with any given tides condition. Number 8, I agree with Brian regarding the $450,000, and not just that. Any large expenditure on consulting should not be put on the consent agenda. It should be debated in public. The process of selecting contractors and consultants should be debated publicly, and we should just have more access to how this is happening, because it shouldn't be done on the consent agenda, and I've already had a Pinecone statement to that effect. Number 9, and related to that study, hopefully all of you have now read this, because I mentioned it before, the Shoreline Management Study. If you haven't, print it out and read it. It's an unbelievably good document. It tells us how to maintain the beach. And our consultants at the Climate Change Committee basically admitted that we have not done any of the maintenance that should be done every single year for the last 15 to 20 years. Read this. It's an incredible document, and it's beautiful. Related to that, there's also the Del Mar one. And these could have been updated, but I can't find the updates. Finally, I just get the feeling that this commission isn't properly representing the needs of our community by being actively engaged and taking charge of the assets that you should be responsible for, our urbanized forest and the beach. It many times seems that staff is controlling your actions, relegating you to making decisions on tree removals rather than more strategic issues where your research and opinions and those of the community could be put into action. There are many residents who will support you and provide assistance. Once again, you need to be actively involved in the upcoming budget meeting, so please show up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dale. Is there anyone else from Chambers that would like to make an appearance? Doesn't look like it. Chambers, look online for online viewers. Are there any hands up?
Swami, yes.
Okay. I don't know if we've got Nancy or we've got Tim, but
Yes, you've got Nancy. Hi, you can hear me?
yep.
Good, great. I'd like to build on Brian Sauer's topic that he raised earlier, and actually so did Dale, with regard to the city council topic that was postponed due to the weather trauma for the EMC report request funding. And at minimum, when that topic makes it back to agenda, whether it's pulled to a standard business topic or remains as a consent agenda, I would pull it personally and request that the presentation on that request for funding be comprehensive in explaining to the public exactly kind of what are the steps to achieve a final action plan to actually do work, to repair stairs, to repair rebutments, etc. So I think it's, there's confusion amongst us mere mortals to understand what the iterative process on research and findings and engineering, etc., are needed as prerequisites to actually getting the work done. So I would love to see that clarification provided in the next city council meeting when that topic is put on the table once again. That's my request. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. And looks like we have Carl Hall. Or Carol?
Yes, Carol Hall.
Sorry, Carol.
I'm a relative newbie in terms of forest and beach issues, but just from the outside, it seems to me that the logical approach to the forest in particular would be to use present policies and look at those, have the residents look at those before hiring expensive consultants to apply their one-size-fits-all template to our little village and come up with recommendations that are rather horrifying to most of us that live in the village in terms of especially the Monterey Pines. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any others online? Doesn't appear so, so I'm going to go ahead and close public appearances and then turn over to our director for announcements.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 today. First of all, we had a hellacious storm on Sunday and this week. So in the Forester's update at the end of the meeting, we'll have a little recap of trees lost, preliminary. The numbers are changing by the minute. Number of tree incidents, trees lost, how has this impacted, that type of thing. Second, one of the people in public appearances mentioned this, and this was requested by the Forest and Beach Commission last month, was to have our police chief, Paul Tomasi, attend the meeting. He wanted to be here today. The report was actually written for him to talk about the criteria for when we have to close the beach, how our police department, public works, and fire coordinate with Monterey County on emergency services, as well as potential for funding of repairs from FEMA or the state Office of Emergency Services, et cetera. So anyway, we'll have that. He assures us he'll be here next month. He's out of town today. So we'll have that next month. Last, I did wanted to talk about the coastal engineering study. That's at EMC amendment number 2. A couple things I would suggest is the Climate Committee meets here in this room a week from today, February 15th at 2:30. You can come here or you can go on Zoom. The EMC and Integral and Harold-Kosunish and Associates, the same firm that presented the shoreline infrastructure repair or conditions assessment, as well as the sand movements onshore, offshore, will be presenting tests 3 and 4. They'll be presented to the Climate Committee next week and then to the Forest and Beach Commission in March. Tasks 3 and 4 are very intense. It talks about sea level rise and the impacts on the shoreline for 1 foot of sea level rise up to 4 or more feet of sea level rise. This is part of the overall assessment of how sea level rise, climate change is going to impact our beach over the next, I guess, 100 years, 75 years or so. This will put in perspective repairing beach stairs, revetments, seawalls. If you recall, the first task was, 4 of our 6 revetments are in not so great condition. Many of our beach stairs, especially the wooden stairs, are deficient. Some of our seawalls are, there's only one that's really bad, but if you recall, we said, okay, this is the first task that we talked about sand. Now we're going to talk about more intense things that are coming. It's coming to Climate Committee next week. I would encourage this committee to review it. It'll come, if you miss it, they'll be here next month with the same presentation. It's pretty impactful what the sea level rise will do on our shoreline. Okay? And I think, and then so that will complete phase 1 of this assessment. The $450,000 is paid entirely by the Coastal Commission grant for the local coastal program. It's 100% funded by the state. They were selected through a qualification-based selection process from the beginning to do both phases 1 and 2. So there's nothing new here. Only thing that's new is that now that we have the funding, we're authorizing them to proceed into phase 2. Phase 2 will include, amongst many things, public outreach, adaptation strategies. How are we going to prolong the usefulness of our beach? Do we add sand? Do we retreat? Do we add more armoring, more walls? That type of thing, okay? So it's going to be a very, I would say shocking, very intense presentation next month. But if you want to see a preview, by all means, it sounds like some members of our community wanted to see that ahead of time. Come here next week for that presentation to Climate Committee. 2:30. Okay. I think that's it for announcements. Let's see if we have any questions.
With that in mind, the consent agenda, items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. The item on the agenda is the January 11th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Commissioner Burling?
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey?
Yes.
Commissioner Montmorency?
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Myers?
Yes.
Thank you, the motion is passed.
Okay, moving right along and to orders of business. Orders of business are agenda items that require city council, board, or commission discussion, debate, direction to staff, and or action. The first of our orders of business today is to receive a presentation and consider approval of a restoration project along the scenic pathway as proposed by the Leadership Carmel class of 2024, subject to issuance of an encroachment permit.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to introduce that, Mr. Chair. First of all, it's my great pleasure to introduce the 4th class of Leadership Carmel. They've been doing a great job, as have their predecessors in the past 3 years. And they're going to be proposing their legacy project in just a moment. The name of the project is referred to as the Scenic Outlook Southwest of 8th Avenue Restoration Project. I wanted to recognize a few individuals in the audience today. Recognize Jeannie and Barry Frew, who are the directors of Leadership Carmel that we've been working with closely for the last 4 years. And today, this presentation will be by Katie Porter and Bibi Lemire, who are both very eager, can't wait to come up, excessively excited to come up and make their presentation. And while they're doing that, in the staff report, I just wanted to clarify, okay, so after their presentation, the commission really has 4 options as I see it. Same thing from a year ago when the other last class made their proposal. Option 1 is you could approve their proposed project subject to issuance of an encroachment permit, which will be done by city staff. Option 2, you can approve the project with minor modifications that staff will administer as part of the encroachment permit. It would not be coming back to the commission. Option 3 is you might want to request more significant modifications to the proposed project and request Leadership Carmel to come back the next month or so with a revised proposal. Or option 4, heaven forbid, you would fully reject the proposal, but it is your prerogative to do so. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Katie and Bibi.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for opening a fast track to this month's agenda, and thank you for hearing this proposal. I'm Katie Jordan, and this is Bibi Lemire. We are members of the 4th class of Leadership Carmel, and as such, we were tasked with coming up with a legacy project to give back to this community, and that is what I'd like to speak with you about today. What we came up with in talks with our, in our relationship with Carmel Cares was an area of scenic, a scenic beach outlook that needs some love. And this is located almost right between 8th and 9th on scenic, adjacent to the only 2 handicap spots on scenic. You can see it's a small dirt surface patio with 2 memorial benches. And time, weather, and erosion has caused some issues here in this outlook. Erosion has caused an abrupt drop on the pathway from the existing border onto the plaza area. Exposed some tree roots, exposed the benches, foundations of those 2 memorial benches, creating uncomfortable seat heights there. There's some water pooling in the pathway that's being held there by the border that's currently in place. And there's a number of tripping hazards associated with all of this, and an overall inconsistency with the other more beautifully landscaped parts of scenic. And I feel like we really improved this area. So to do so, here's some additional pictures of the need. You can see the sloping ground, the lack of landscaping, the water being held on the path, the border that's currently in place, creating that abrupt drop and uneven terrain, tripping hazard, that sort of thing. So what we propose is to repair this area by removing that existing border along the pathway, rebuilding the decomposed granite using the same material that's in place, California Gold decomposed granite, and creating a level transition from the pathway into the outlook and around the benches. We hope to be able to relocate 2 irrigation valve boxes to outside of this newly designed area. We're going to install hopefully some flexible drain lines to divert the stormwater and hopefully mitigate future damage. Keep it looking nice for a long time. The viewing patio will be bordered with more golden granite borders, very exactly like the ones that are already in place along scenic. And we hope to incorporate some native driftwood logs in the design as well, that are located just north of the outlook. So here's the plan. And you can see that we've removed the border, enlarged the outlook area for a nice level surface all around the memorial benches. Some random natural placement of the stones and log. We've got all of the cypress trees labeled on this plan that surround the area. And there's a couple photos. That photo of the log is the actual log we'd like to use. It's just north of this outlook currently. And then also just north of the outlook is an example of the rock outcroppings. We'd like to see a border, something like that, softer, easy transitions to the beach on the north side. And we had Andrew Tope come out and in our site walks and talks about the project. He determined that we would have a minimal impact on the surrounding priceless cypress trees that surround this outlook. And Bibi will talk to you about the funding.
Yes. So good afternoon, commissioners. So here, the funding, how we look to get there is we're estimating that this project will cost anywhere between around about $25,000, give or take. And some of the ways that we'd like to raise these funds is first, we'd like to work with the city contributions of materials, where appropriate and possible. We'd also looking to get private contributions, so there are members of the community that are very supportive, and grants, as well as miscellaneous fundraising efforts by the leadership group and those who support us. Leadership Carmel is also working on some following grants. The grants are Carmel-by-the-Sea's Council Discretionary Grant Program, Carmel Gives, the Rotary Club, Community Foundation for Monterey County, and Yellow Brick Road. So that is what we're looking to obtain through our funding efforts. And we'd like to give special thanks to City of Carmel Public Works Department, Bob Herreri and his staff, Carmel Cares, which is Dale Byrne and Shirley Moon, Tope's Tree Service, Andrew Tope, the arborist, City of Carmel Forestry Department, Justin Ono, City Forester, Carmel Point Landscapes, Chris Bayada, Doug Payne Landscaping, Doug Payne, and Lewis Builders, Laura Meeks, residential designer. And so we're very kindly thankful and grateful for all of your time and listening to us speak about what we'd love to do for this area.
Appreciate the presentation. Anyone from the commission have any questions for these ladies?
I just like to say thank you. I think even though we can't access the beach right now well, the work that Carmel Cares has done and the work that you're doing really makes that whole scenic area one of a kind and very special. And I think without our, it's remarkable what our volunteer organizations continue to bring to this city. And thank you so much. That's a great spot. I was just walking by there this morning, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
I agree. Very thoughtful design and concept, and certainly suits well with what is being accomplished along scenic right now. So thank you for choosing this. I know we've got a bunch of wood chips. Maybe wood chips.
We do. We certainly do. And logs. If
Logs
you
and
want
wood
logs.
chips, yeah. A lot of those. Yeah, well, let's go ahead and thank you very much. Open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from Chambers that would like to make some comments about this leadership classes proposal? Doesn't look like it from Chambers. Let me take a quick look online to see if there's anyone online.
Cindy Lloyd.
Cindy Lloyd would. Okay, lovely. Cindy Lloyd.
Cindy, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Cindy, yes.
Oh, I can't hear you, so I'll just have to speak blindly. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I would like to congratulate leadership Carmel is on this wonderful collaboration. It's certainly something that's necessary and will add a great deal of not only aesthetics, but safety. So good for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing it to fruition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy. Anyone else online?
Just wanted to say thank you also. There we go. It looks lovely. I was curious if you're going to put in any plants or anything also, if that was part of your design.
Yes, we've been talking about that, and we've been talking about that with Dale and Shirley. We would like to install some native plants and things like that with, working very closely with Carmel Cares. Could be like a phase 2.
Mm-hmm. And we did receive multiple pages of approved plants, native plants that have been approved for scenic route, so we can maybe come up with a few there.
Looks lovely. I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we mention wood chips?
Yes, but you
Just making sure. Discussion amongst the commission in terms of any modification suggestions along those lines, or are we ready to go ahead and provide an approval?
I think it's a great plan. I don't think we need any changes. I'll be glad to be able to get in. I'm 5 feet tall. I'll be glad to be able to get in those benches.
We'll work on that too, so.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, then, should we have a roll call for approval?
Yeah, oh, definitely, yes.
Yep. Then that.
You can sit down.
Commissioner Burling?
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey? Yes. Commissioner Morency?
Yes.
Chair
Keep getting
Myers?
there.
I know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, moving along with our orders of business. Next, we will receive a presentation of 2 urban forest master plan deliverables, the tree inventory and species in Carmel-by-the-Sea, and the tree canopy and land cover assessment.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to kick this off. Just for the record, I had my speaker notes on this, and that didn't work, so I have it on this. Before we turn it over to Justin, so I wanted to have us all take a step back and kind of look at the big picture of where we're at with the Urban Forest Master Plan before we get into the specifics of these technical reports. Okay, as you know, we've hired a Davie Resource Group to prepare our Urban Forest Master Plan, which will ultimately provide their recommendations for the city to consider based on their 10 or so technical studies and tasks. Their first big task that they completed was the inventory of about 10,000 city trees. And in fact, the second item, item number 4, after this report, Justin will be talking about a recap of that inventory, as well as giving us a tree keeper live demonstration, which will be pretty cool. The second major task that was done with the Urban Forest Master Plan was the community survey. Back in December, we saw the results of the community survey. And if you recall, wow, there's a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of things for the commission to consider. Not just, it was not intended to be, here's the community survey and we're done. It's meant to be, here's the results of the survey, let's put that on the side and let's get this additional information, and once we have the whole package, then we start, or we would request the commission to start looking at implementing specific recommendations, strategies, prioritizing, things of that nature, okay? So the inventory is done, the community survey was done, so now this, there's a lot of data and that will be forthcoming. And what Justin and Tom and I were talking about, and we bounced this off of Chair Myers the other day, rather than here's the whole Urban Forest Master Plan, which is kind of going to be overwhelming when we finally get it, let's do this in components. So this is a technical component regarding, what's it called, the tree inventory and tree canopy and land cover assessment. Now this is going to be filled with a lot of data, a lot of technical information. This report, this technical report, and other technical reports to come over the next several months forms the basis of how Davie Resource Group will provide their recommendations. So today, when we hear this report, there might be some things like, wow, this is interesting. No one is suggesting here today that it's gospel. It's not something that we have to act on yet. It's going to be a bunch of information, and it's not up to the consultant to tell the city what to do. We should listen to what the consultants have to say, and then ultimately this commission, city council will make the decisions what we want to take from this technical study, if anything. What we want to take, what do we want to implement, what don't we want to implement, when do we want to implement certain things. So again, this is not the Urban Forest Master, this is a technical study. And the next several months, we'll see more technical studies that will form the foundation of the Urban Forest Master Plan, which will include recommendations for us to consider. Okay? So I wanted to put everything in perspective. I think that's enough of my babbling. Is there any questions about what the big picture of what we're doing before we get into the specific report? Is that clear where we're at?
It just seems to me that they have some really set ideas from what they've said here.
Right.
And that's not what I'd like to see from them. I'd like to see variety. You know, like saying that we're finding places where there can be more canopy tower coverage, and they leave out anything about views, fire, sunshine, solar.
Right.
But that is a recommendation based upon the data that we have. This is raw data. A bare patch of dirt is a bare patch of dirt, and whether we want it to or not, a tree can go there. That's what they're looking at. So this is...
Say that again, please.
A bare patch of dirt is a bare patch of dirt, and whether we want it to or not, a tree could be planted there, and that's what they're looking at. There is satellite data mixed with boots on the ground inventory, but a lot of what we're covering here is recovered from a satellite data for in terms of the tree canopy cover, because that's what they're doing is the tree canopy cover over a set area. The city has a set area, a little over a square mile, and looking through the satellite, X amount, was it 40, almost 36, 37% is covered by vegetative growth. That is not arguable. That is what the satellite data says, and that's what this is presenting. The data on what the city looks like now and the vegetative conditions.
And where we go from here is up to subject to the commission.
This is a tool to figure out.
It's a tool to figure out
what we're going to do going
here.
forward.
I got a very bad feeling about them in that meeting we had at Vista Lobos when they gave us all these little maps with green dots, and we were to put green dots all the places we wanted more trees. There was nothing about the same amount of trees, less trees. It was clear to me that their frame of reference is more trees. And more trees might be what we decide on, but I don't get a flexibility, and there certainly isn't in this, but I realize it's the beginning. I hope we see some changes.
And if I may, the community survey that we saw back in December, the majority was keep the same number of trees or less trees.
Yes, that's right. 78%.
Okay, so that's one component. Today we'll have a different component. We'll have several more components before we see the draft of the report.
Okay.
So
we'll see.
But how, it would be helpful to be able to input into the draft.
absolutely.
Yeah, we're not
Okay.
there yet, though. This is where it's very.
Yes.
We haven't even got the first super
Right.
rough draft
We're
yet.
getting chunks.
We were supposed to by the end of December, but they had one of the people writing it is no longer with them, so they've had some shuffle in staff, and the delay in rolling out the survey kind of threw a wrench in things. So we're a little bit behind, but we're still within the time frame that was provided.
So just for clarity, and thanks for attempting to explain how you're, well, obviously there's some questions around how this is going to be rolled out. So you're suggesting that there will be X number, let's call them 6, I'm not sure, I thought that sounded like about the right number of technical components that will be presented to the commission. And while it's being presented, it's presented in a way that just for us to absorb, there really isn't any reason to make any kind of assessment from it or make any type of, at this point, we're just reviewing the information. Is that correct? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think this, today we're talking about 2 of the topics of the 10 initially.
10. Okay.
There was the prior 2, so we'll be up to 4.
Okay.
And I mean,
I'm not sure, some of the technical studies, we're not going to waste your time. So there's a few more coming. There's a few more coming.
You could, but debating some of the things is kind of, this is what it is, and there are good things in here that show that we are in line with other really affluent communities that are well thought of in terms of their trees. So
we're hoping the commission and the community understand what this data provides, what information it has.
And there's not decisions. This is just
this is not decisions
data,
yet.
guiding data.
There'll be lots of decisions to be made later.
Just reinforcing what you're looking to the commission to do from what you're presenting today. So, okay, so it's just essentially to hear it out, to receive the presentation.
Yeah, and you can ask questions if you'd like, obviously.
Okay.
I remember when this process, it's okay if I speak?
Absolutely.
Okay. I remember when this process started, the previous forester had said that there would be opportunities for collaboration and kind of working sessions and discussion of all the different inputs. I think that's really, really important that we just don't get a piece today and a piece next time and a piece next time, and then all of a sudden we have something to approve without having the opportunity to participate in because there will be choices to be made, right?
Of course.
Choice, are we increasing canopy or are we trying to maintain canopy?
Right.
What trees are we going to advocate for, right? Like, for example, I remember in the workshop that Commissioner Berlin referenced, there was a strong point of view from the consultant that we had an over-concentration of trees, which we'll find out about in the report you present today, and that was really not good for biodiversity, for example. Yeah. And yet when we survey our community, this community values the iconic nature of some of the trees that we have here, and there may be a basis that we want to maintain that as opposed to destroy that. So the decisions that we have to make, the strategic choices that go into that plan, I think are going to be really important choices that I think we should make collaboratively and with public input. Right? So if we need to have some kind of roll up our sleeves working sessions to debate the pros and cons of what strategic choices we could make, that might be better served in a non-Forest and Beach Commission meeting, but rather in an open forum to have just on the Urban Forest Master Plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I think that would be really useful because what didn't go so well was when the beach plan, I forget what the name was, when that was just presented as a done deal to the commission a few meetings back. I don't think that would be a productive way to sort of go forward and approve this urban forest master plan.
And if I may, the intent is to have a series of public workshops. These Forest and Beach Commission meetings with the steering committee are also public meetings. So this is really the third opportunity for the public to weigh in on the Urban Forest Master Plan, even though we're still in the early stages. So there'll be more workshops, there'll be more presentations to the Forest and Beach Commission. So that is the intent.
Well, and I think we should, I want to echo that, I think we should calendar those workshops because I think that it's pretty difficult to imagine that the public can come in and make comment today on material that's being presented today, right? Or that much better, wait until next meeting. I think we should actually calendar with this input with the information that's coming out, this raw data, there should be public workshops around it and calendar it on a monthly basis. So, I mean, I'm really hearing strong messages from the community about a disconnection. And they want to be connected, and I want them to be connected. We all do, right? So we certainly don't want to feel as if that beach presentation was kind of, rolled up and here it is, right? And I know that wasn't what it was, but there was perception like that, so.
Understandable.
Well, I think that public workshops would be really well served to discuss the specific strategic choices that will need to be made, and that's where we can have the collaboration and input, right? Because another topic that was raised by the previous forester was that most cities work with small, medium, and large trees, right? And in our particular town, the coastal live oak and the Monterey pine and the cypress would all be large trees by that categorization, and that the distinction of the canopies is not something that's always typical in a plan. And so I think that's also something that I remember when we had a conversation about that would be worth discussing. Like, let's make sure we get the nomenclature on how we want the plan
That was
to
actually
be
something
developed.
that Sarah Davis suggested,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, before she left.
Okay.
So with that, do you want to make a presentation?
Why don't you get started there, Justin?
Okay, fun. Just want to let you know, too, that I was planning on a huge PowerPoint, good everything, and then Sunday happened, so I'm a little running on fumes, but I'm here today.
Yvette, can we get this off the
You
screen?
didn't go to church on Sunday.
Can we get the agenda on the screen?
Oh, actually, the staff report, I think, is
The
what.
staff report on the screen?
Such a nice logo they have for Leadership Carmel.
Yeah, it was good.
They need some stairs to that sand.
Oh, don't start.
We don't have any.
I was down there. I was down there today.
There's no beach access today. Untitled, but
On the seawalk.
Getting hammered. This weekend is King Tide.
yeah, it's happening this morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
But today, I mean, it was just
I
pounding.
think tomorrow's the actual king tide, too.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was one surfer out there today.
Oh,
What
it was
beach
big.
thing?
The king tide,
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
really in. King tide.
Down there. Yeah, that's about it.
The king didn't die. The king has cancer.
The King Tide.
The king died.
That's a different issue.
Not yet.
Because he was sick yesterday.
Yeah, he's got cancer.
Oh, my God.
That was quick. All right, back on task.
Supposed to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There it was. Oh, get back to that person. Thank you.
There we go.
Oh, almost.
It does.
Oh, does that make sense? My answer.
Yes, yeah, completely. Yeah.
What do you got going on there? That's right there. Right here. Right there. Turn it to mute.
Which one?
This one. This one goes red right here. Flip it one way here, this way. Just push it at the end.
I think if you just scroll, you'll get there, right?
It tried to. It's at the bottom. It's only ring the agenda.
Okay, so yeah, you hold it all the way down.
Oh.
Okay, now goes to ring.
It's opening. It's like an attachment.
That was the top.
Yeah, just hold it in.
Your first official meeting had the most public comment at the beginning ever since I've been on.
Do you want us to have the clicker?
That's attachment.
If that
Yeah,
would-
there you go, attachment two.
There we go. Let's do this. It's survey first, I think.
Oh, yes.
You wanted to start at attachment 2, right?
Yeah. Commissioners, so this is the raw data of the near 10,000 trees that Davey inventoried during the inventory. As was brought up in the community meeting, we have over 40% coast live oaks and almost a little over 18% Monterey pines. That's just, it is very high. I understand that, you know, this is the native trees, and we love the Monterey pines kind of make Carmel. But this is, it's very high in terms of proper diversity. But again, that's just decisions for another time. This is just the overall raw data from the survey. There are 5 pages of species down to single instances, and I will show you where this is all mapped out in our final presentation of Tree Keeper, where we can click around and see what trees are in front of everybody's house, so we can show you, it's like, oh, this is the pine tree in front of my house. I thought this would be really good, and then I realized there's not a lot to really talk about. This is kind of what the data is. If you guys have any questions or you want to.
I have a question. I
Yes.
think, if I understood correctly, the city tree inventory is approximately 40% of the total canopy or total trees, right? I think, did I see somewhere that 60% are on private property?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like 60-40?
He's going to cover that.
Yeah.
So would you assume that the private property tree diversification was paralleled what you found in this 40% sample that was on the city? Like, did they look at the satellite imagery to try and determine?
They didn't really go into species, but I would, just driving around town, I would assume that it's fairly similar.
Yeah, okay.
With probably less diversity. Probably similar, because you have kind of ornamental trees in the parks in downtown, and people have some ornamental trees in their yards. So I think that's probably similar to what we see on people's private property.
It was interesting because I did think that the consulting group was, when we, in the public workshop, they ignore, I know the project is inventorying the city trees and we're building an urban forest master plan for the city, right? I totally appreciate that. But there was almost like a complete detachment of anything related to a tree on private property, but yet 60% of our trees are on private property, right? So it's kind of, we need to think about that in context.
And that's
right?
more what the land cover assessment is, because we can't go, knocking on everybody's door and saying, hey, how many trees do you have? I mean, we could probably get close with all the permits, they put all the trees, but it's just hard, with private property, and we can only inventory the trees but really, you're probably, with the coverage and the similarities in kind of the continuity of the vegetation in the city, it would probably be pretty similar.
Okay.
But also maybe a little bit skewed less, because one really old pine tree could cover a whole property and count for the canopy coverage for that whole, like 100% of a property, because in the roads there's some breakage from the roads and the trails, but one in the backyard could cover the whole property, and that's just the coverage of what's seen top down from the satellite. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you know approximately how many of the Monterey pines were planted?
No, I don't know where we would even get that data.
Okay.
I don't know how old records of that would be kept. Probably a lot over the years. I mean, the really, really big, mature native ones are kind of, I would think, would be aging out at this time, because they only live 80 to 100 years, kind of like people. So the really big ancient pines, there aren't too many of them left.
Steering committee member Linda Smith would probably have the best guess to answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah, was it Monterey Pine Forest Watch? One of those pine organizations probably has data on that.
Rough estimate.
Yeah.
So can we assume that most of the coast live oaks were not planted. Most of them are just native and have just sort of spread, grown in this area. Do you know?
I think people planted
Yeah.
I
them
think those a
because they
lot of
wanted
those
them.
were planted too. It's
Yeah.
really,
Right. I mean, some were, must have
Or
been
is there any
spontaneous,
information
but-
on that also?
I don't know. I haven't seen it. I mean, I would probably go back and maybe ask Greg D'Ambrosio or somebody who was with the forest a long time ago. I just know that there were a lot here. Just talking to just anecdotal data, like talking to my dad growing up here in the 50s and 60s, that there were a lot of oaks.
Part of what, where I see this, I want to look at what is natural here, what's native, what makes sense here. We can look around at what just happened with the storm. What are the trees that are breaking and cracking and falling? And, just when we're looking at this, to just see what makes the most sense for our city. So I'd like to see us really try to, incorporate that and have as much historical knowledge as we can get before we began to plant trees and,
Definitely. I mean, we all have the historical knowledge, but also the plan is going to be looking forwards, because if you go backwards, there were tiny cottages on these 4,000 square foot lots, so the Monterey pine trees could grow to whatever size, because there'd be a tiny little postage stamp on these little lots. And now we've got huge, with the price per square footage in this town, it behooves builders to build bigger houses, and those don't always jive with the large pine forest, for good or for bad. I'm not making judgment either.
Right.
Just
Just trying to look at
happening.
what's native here, what
definitely.
makes sense. Because when I look around, when I drive around, I didn't see a lot of oak trees that had fallen over.
Yeah, just a few. They're smaller, and they're.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when I
Everything
just
But I think some of the pines are really old. Like part of it is I
And
think
some-
it's we
well,
have a
and the
little bit
oaks
of
are-
deferred maintenance in our forest.
Could I
oaks
ask,
are
as
old.
commissioners, let's please approach our mics when we're speaking. I know I can see from our public that it's hard for them
There.
to hear. So please speak into the mic.
Okay, I think I am.
You are.
Okay, alrighty. Just trying to with that in mind, just with the storms, what makes sense, as we move forward and are making choices.
Definitely, because what's happening 20 years ago, 10 years ago now, will probably not be the same conditions going forward. So,
Right.
because I mean, I don't remember when. I don't know the full historical data, but not all the roads in Carmel used to be paved. So they put pine trees next to unpaved roads because it just
Didn't inhibit them
plant the
from-
forest. And now
Right.
we've got pavement and buildings and sidewalks. It's evolving and changing.
Right.
So thinking of the live oaks, in the 40s and 50s, there were tons of live oaks. And so were they planted themselves or
Yeah, they
whatever.
just seeded and.
But I also think that we're hearing from people they want some different trees. We don't have to have just native trees.
Right,
The
right.
natives are.
So good thing from this data, anyway, is that there's 220 plus species that are identified
Yeah.
that are city trees. And so this will be a part of a future discussion, which of these trees are good for this area, which ones are potentially opportunities to consider expanding upon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why it's being generated here. And so
Definitely. And one of the things that we track in our storm data is what trees fell, because not only pine, it wasn't just pines. We actually did have a lot of at least 5 or 6 big acacias that fell too. And it's like, are those right for the city? I know that they're not native and people like them, but there's a lot of them, and we probably don't need those.
Can you, will they take a filter against all these trees and do any kind of scoring about which are best for fire, which are best for like atmospheric rivers? Like, is there a way to look at the trees that are here and come up with sort of a...
Not necessarily here, but that all that data is in the, I've been working on them with the new plant palette, because the recommended, upper or lower canopy trees that we had It was kind of dated. We still have the pines and cypresses and oaks, but there's a handful of others that would also woodwork, natives and near natives, that are adaptable. We have a lot of cells, a lot of data for you, because I know you like spreadsheets, and it, fire, water requirements, rooting, depth, hardscape damage, stuff like that.
That's useful, right? To
Oh,
come up with
totally.
some sort of scoring.
More data,
yeah.
data, the better.
Right.
Before I open up to public comment, I believe in this particular part of this attachment here, was there a separate portion you wanted to show, you wanted to demonstrate the tree keeper?
That'll be another
That's in the second piece?
Yeah.
Okay, so since it is a two-piece, I'm going to just open this first part up since the commission decided to
This
ask
is
questions.
part 1A, there's a part 1B.
Yeah, I know. So I'm going to open up public comment to 1A.
Okay.
Since
You're the one.
we had commission
You are
discussion
the
around
chair.
it, so
Okay,
I'd like
that makes
to
sense.
go ahead and offer up opportunity for a public comment in regards to what's being presented. This first portion, which is the inventory of the species in the appendices. I don't know if from Chambers you have copies or not, don't. And then what you would see here. But anyway, I'll open it up for public comment in general from Chambers first. If there anyone that would care to speak to it, doesn't. Oh, okay, yep. Melanie, you can come up to the podium. And again, I'd ask that you keep your comments specific to the table that's being presented right now, which is,
The current table?
that's correct, the
Okay,
inventory.
that's fine.
Thank
There's
you.
plenty to talk about.
Perfect.
I think looking at that table, we see what is really in the forest. I mean, it's very comprehensive, very good. You have to decide whether you think it's appropriate or inappropriate. And to my way of thinking, there are far too many trees in this survey that do not belong in this forest. And they're indigenous to other areas, and I'll be very interested to hear more about your comments about what is appropriate for the forest. But I can just tell you that based upon my research and writing, that 15 million years ago, this forest with tectonic plates moved from Central America up the coast and landed in the peninsula area. And what you see today are the remnants of that mother forest. And there are 5 places along the California coast where the Monterey pine is indigenous to California, and that is Monterey, the Monterey forest, which Carmel is part of, and Ana Nuevo, Cambria, and then 2 little islands off of Baja. And the reason for the changes in vegetation and the forest and the movement is all based on tectonics, which happened a long, long time ago. And they're still trying to analyze how Monterey Bay ever got to be where it is and how Carmel Bay got to be where it is. It's all part of that geological situation. So our trees have been here a long time. And if you want to know anything about the Monterey pines and about what you're being the guardians of, it's very simple. There are several books out. I've read a lot. There are a lot of scientific papers and studies. And it's a truly unique forest that we have here. So I think that's important, number 1, to realize. And number 2, that during this whole entire period of time, we're talking about the development and movement of the Monterey pine up to where it is today, is that it's gone through several different ice ages. It flourishes in the interim periods in the ice ages when the trees have a cooler, can I just finish,
Okay.
JC? When the pines have a cooler environment, the forest expands. And then when it's hot, like we are now, getting hotter, it contracts, but it never vanishes in our areas. So these trees have been here a long time. Now you can question, you know, how many were planted and how many are natural today if you want to. But the fact of the matter is these pines have lived through climatic change. And they're going to live through this one too. I feel very sure if they've lived as long as the scientists say they have, then I don't think we need to be particularly worried about them. We need to understand that they're stressed out and that some will die. But, you know, if we all live long enough for another ice age to appear, well, then they'll start growing again, and that's been the nature of what's been going on here.
Okay.
So that is just
Melanie,
a
thank you.
tiny
I've got a few other people that are asking
tiny,
to speak.
bit of information for you to look at.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Looking for no one else from chambers, then I'll open it up online. Nancy, I see your hand is up. If that's Nancy or Tim, I don't know, but we'll go with Nancy.
Yes, it's me again. I wanted to, it looks like this roster of tree inventory on the public property is the same as it was last summer when we had the workshop. And obviously we've had storms that have occurred prior to this report being done and then subsequent to this report being done. And I'm wondering how that is being updated or if it is that it actually punts to the next topic when we look at the online tree keeper information. But I hate to see us lose track of the fact that we have lost a lot of trees, and that should be reflected in whatever is the final rollout. That's it. Thanks.
Fair question. Thanks, Nancy. Let's see if we can get an answer for you there. In the meantime, I see Cindy's hand up. So, Cindy Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Chairman Myers, member of the commission, and city staff. My name is Cindy Lloyd. When I was hearing the distribution of pine versus oak, it occurred to me that one of the things that happens in these storms is that the pine trees fall down and the oak trees just sway. They might lose a branch, but they aren't damaged as much, even in this last storm, as the pine trees are. So that kind of makes the fewer pine trees on the survey than the oak trees. The other thing I'm going to just say at this point is that cypress trees are extraordinarily brittle, grow very tall and very wide, and so their branches come off in storms very, very easily, which makes them not such a good tree to put in, particularly the downtown commercial district, in my view anyway. So I will just stop at that, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. We'll go ahead and close the public comment. Justin, when you stepped out, there was a question from one of the audience members online in regards to whether or not the table and the data in the table, is it static or is it constantly being updated with storms, et cetera?
It is, and that'll be part of the demonstration tree keeper, because this is what it's based off of, and we can show you that when you remove a tree, we'll turn it into a stump, and then eventually when that gets ground out, it'll become a planting site. And when we plant something, we turn it into, it's very dynamic and we update it.
Okay, great. So why don't we go ahead and then, I guess, let's have the presentation for 1B?
Yes.
Let's go. 1B it is.
Oh, I see. And that's to the left or right? There it is. Okay, so this is the tree canopy and land cover assessment summary report. As I mentioned, this data was taken from the NAIP data, which is the National Agriculture Imaging Project. When you go onto a geographical information system, that is one of the layers that you can choose, the NAIP data for satellite imagery that's free to the public. So they took this data to analyze the vegetative cover of the city. It's about a 45-page document with 25 pages of it really being the meat, the rest of it kind of being an explanation of benefits, how they got there. I'm kind of mostly going into the meat of the first 25 pages or so and hitting some highlights. So in this tree canopy and land cover that they talk about, there's a lot of percentages and it's a lot of data that they throw at us. The city, as it stands, is covered by 36% vegetative cover, tree cover mostly, which is pretty good. I'll show you some tables later that compare it to similar cities that we want to compare ourselves to. The several things I pulled out here to talk about are that parks are the highest level with 37, almost 38%. Again, this is all the whole city. The parks are the most covered in trees with almost 38%, and then the commercial downtown district is a little, almost 8.5%. Again, not saying that we want to plant a tree anywhere we can plant a tree, because a lot of these possible planting sites could be people's parking spots. They could be anything that's bare without tree cover or sidewalks or pavement. Is almost 81 acres of possible planting sites, but of course that not all of those really make sense. Just wanted to reiterate that because I know that the term possible planting site was kind of a trigger and kind of an issue last time. It's just possible because anything's possible. If we want to put a tree down, we can. Again, when we get all the data, we get all the public input from you, input from council, then we'll know what the canopy goals that we want to meet or keep, whether we want to plant or not. Or have lower canopy cover in certain areas and higher in others. Maybe we want less in the residential, less in the industrial or commercial, and more in the parks, more in the beach area. It's just, everything's, this is just what it is now, and as we know what is there, we can make decisions going forward.
I think if you look at their conclusions, though, Justin, they do have a very strong bias about filling all the spaces, right? Because one of the conclusions is that you plant every empty space ahead of where the stumps are, right? So the priority that they recommended was fill the open spaces, right? Then go for the plant where there's a stump, right? And there's a lot of language about expanding the canopy and expanding tree planting on private property. I appreciate the perspective they're coming from, but I think when they get bundled as conclusions, it's hard to not feel like that's a strategic recommendation that they're making that may or may not be in the best interests of the plan. That's all.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
right.
even with their conclusions or whatever conclusions that we get, us as staff and you as the commissioners, our job is to filter that data and those conclusions to make the recommendations right for the city. Because when we get this first draft, it's probably not going to be what we want. It's probably not going to be right for this community. So we need to tailor it and make sure that it's in the voice of the Carmel citizens and everyone to make sure it fits the city. And that's the ultimate goal of this, not just to have we're going to pay, however much $1,000 and we're just gonna do whatever they say because we have, you know, capable staff and you know, well-intentioned and well-educated commissioners that we know that we can take their information, filter it, and make what's right for the city.
I think though as a consultant, it would be nice if they could say, frame their recommendations in such a way as to, if the goal were to increase canopy, these are the actions that you would consider taking. If the goal was to maintain canopy, these are the actions we recommend. And if your goal was to decrease canopy, these are the, right? Because at least then they're laying out a framework upon which to take actions. When they just present it as if the goal is to increase canopy, right? It comes across as biased, which is unfortunate. That's all.
Justin, just as a point of like how we're interacting here, would you prefer to make this presentation and then have us ask you questions, or do you mind that we're
This is
interjecting?
fine. I like
Okay,
it. I like it more as a discussion.
Just want to make sure you're all right with
Takes
that.
the pressure off of me to fill the gaps. So this is perfect.
Okay.
This is, it really came out weird in the agenda, but this is the map that we all saw at the, that we saw at the presentation, with the green being the canopy coverage, individual trees all the way down to the really dense planting in Mission Trail for anyone that didn't see it before, the beach. So they took all this data of coverage, and there's a tool that the Forest Service put out called iTree that quantifies the benefits that these trees offer. And the but the main kind of benefits that all plants offer is they sequester carbon, they improve our air quality through taking carbon dioxide, giving us oxygen, reducing particulates, and then blocking the stormwater through diversion, but also through pumping the actual water out of the ground so it doesn't saturate. These are the benefit, and then the values that are pumped out through the equations in iTree, which is very complicated and not worth really getting into in this situation or this setting.
Is that $151,000 is the value of all the trees in the city of Carmel?
Oh, no, they have another number.
What did you say again?
It was $151,000.
The environmental, there's other values. This is the environmental benefit values.
Okay.
Plus,
Annual.
If you could lean towards your mic a little bit when you talk, it'd be a help.
but there's many different values. There's landscape value, there's property value. This is just the environmental benefits from iTree. So with those, with all this information, we can use the canopy data and the inventory to set goals and for the management, and things like set our canopy goals. Do we want to expand it? Encourage tree planting on private, or these are just our possible options going forward. These aren't the recommendations necessarily or conclusions. These are what we could do. Or, if 70% of the city says they want less, then we come up with a logging program or something. But not saying not saying that we're going to do that. I'm just saying
another storm.
Oh boy. Just one of the possible things that we can do with the data and what the plan will hopes to achieve of what we're going to be doing going forward.
So do we have, it sounds like we might have enough information now to have a public workshop to talk about the canopy goal, and that way that Davey could then come back at least with a draft that reflected some of the strategic choices that we believe the community values. Right now, I think the draft we're gonna get is an increased canopy up to 48%, put a tree wherever there's dirt, right? And I'm just not.
The draft is gonna take what the survey said, and I don't know if that's what the survey said necessarily. So that is a big part of what took the draft so long, is they needed
Survey input.
Survey input and what the people want, because that was question number one. What, should it increase, decrease, or stay the same? So I have to talk to them about it and where we're at with public meetings. I don't know how many we have budgeted or how many there were planned to be for the overall project, but there definitely should be another one. I don't know when, if it's too soon or if we want to get the draft first.
So it just might be it might be a more collaborative process if there was community alignment on the survey results and what we were asking them to draft, versus having them do a draft, right, and them feel that was rejected or friction or, right? It might just be.
Well, they understand that the draft that they're going to make is going to not really be, it's going to be raw, and it's, as they put, it's not going to be in the voice of Carmel. So we're going to take that, and it's going to go through the process to make it the final report that we want to speak for us.
Yeah, let me interject something here, because this project started before Justin's time. A couple things. I think we're prematurely speculating what the final what their recommendations will be in the urban forest master plan, because this is one of the technical reports. There was the community survey. There's more coming. So I think we're jumping the gun on what the urban forest master plan will say, recommend. And of course, we could throw it out, start all over, whatever, but we're not there yet. The other issue was the communities or public meetings. By all means, we can have additional public meetings, and just I think our consultant only has one more in their budget, but we always intended from day one to have not only meetings here at Forest Beach, but additional staff-led public meetings. So, and I guess really the good question that Justin was bringing up, is now the time? Should we wait for one more? We can start, as the chairman said, we can start scheduling them now.
Bob, how many?
That's the intent.
When are we going to get
the whole report?
The whole report, yeah.
Good question.
The meeting after that would be good timing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have a meeting set next week to go over a longer meeting than our normal check-ins, and we should be drilling down to really timelines and what we should be getting. They said it's basically done. They just need to really tailor the first draft to being polished to give to us.
So when you say we, do you mean you and this group?
Staff.
Yeah, okay.
And then, because I don't want to present to you a raw report that just is
not ready, and what may come off as abrasive and not what you want to hear. But so we want to digest it and get it the most approachable and really tailor it to how we want it to sound. Not, like I said, not just a technical report with data and this is this, so this is going to be that, because every city in the world is better with 50% canopy cover. We want to really put it as they put it in Carmel's voice and what makes sense for the town.
It really seems to me the sooner the better, though. For this just to keep dragging on month after month after month, we're not accomplishing very much, and it'd be good to get their stuff. And
I agree.
I actually, to Commissioner Kelly's point, I actually think that there's some really good, tangible things to talk about with the community, so that when and if a recommendation is made to increase the canopy to 48% hypothetically, that there's community buy-in to the reasons why. It's going to impact air pollution and reduce stormwater drainage, and so that there's an embracement of what the reasoning is around that, as opposed to it just being done behind not closed doors per se, but you
No,
know.
definitely. And
So I think there's a lot here.
Yeah.
That's, I think really I like your thought process around wanting to give it Carmel's voice, and what a better way than to have a community workshop around that.
Okay.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah, we just wanted to, we don't want to freak anybody out with it either, and we want to show that why we're making decisions and why the decisions were made, science-based, that this makes sense for the town and for the environment going forward for the next 40 years.
Sure.
But do we want to have a public meeting when nothing is yet talked about things like views and solar energy and fire prevention and all those other things that trees have to be considered?
Exactly.
And none of that is mentioned in any of this yet.
I don't know if it's mentioned in.
No, not
what's
in
here.
anything we've gotten. And the fire is mostly, that's a separate report that's being drafted by another consultant that is.
And that was presented.
And we presented it in November, the CWPV.
Yeah.
That a bit on hold with the changeover in the fire chief. So.
Okay.
But can I ask, is there consideration, though, for the types of trees that we're looking at? I mean, that should be in conjunction with the types of trees that we're choosing with regards to fire prevention. Are we supposed to take the fire prevention information, and how do we correlate that to the choices of trees and
The location.
Well, that'll be,
location?
the tree selection palette is part of the forest management plan, and that's being finalized. They just gave us back a final draft that I had okayed, so we'll probably present that next month for the tree palette, I think, for everybody to go over.
Does the tree palette take into consideration fires and that sort of thing?
There are a lot of different inputs. I think there's fire, but every tree that's on the tree palette burns. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
really.
But how many trees and where they're placed is really important.
But that's
because-
the forest management plan in terms of the tree density and the canopy coverage.
Right.
So they go hand in hand. They're all kind of interconnected. Really, I mean, pines would be one thing because pines do burn a lot. Really, pines and eucalyptus. You know, there are different more pyrophytic plants, and that is one of the criteria in the plant palette, that you can choose to plant that or not to plant that. And this is really, it's really for the residents to choose what they want to plant, that what fits with the community and what fits with the environment as a whole. And the city will do what we think is best to plant appropriate trees for the community, going back historically with the pine forest, but also with, looking forward to adapting to the changing climate.
So does TOPES, are they consulting on that as
So-
well? Or is that something that we'll just take and we'll decide?
Wait, you mean,
We'll look at-
you mean Davy?
We'll take the data of the different choices that we have for trees, or are they giving us these trees are more beneficial in an environment like this? Like, we all know that the Mission Trail, that's a higher the density of trees and the issue with regards to forest fires in that specific area. Are we going to look at the tree types and the tree density? Are they looking at that, and is that part of their recommendation to us?
Are we still talking about the forest management plan or fire?
I'm just talking about when they tell us our tree palette. Are they just putting anything in our palette, or are they?
No, they gave me a list and I kicked a bunch out and took.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
So
yes.
you've looked at that.
Yes,
and you've picked, okay.
we've had a draft go through, and we've got
Okay.
another draft, hopefully a final draft coming through that I kicked a lot out that I didn't like. They were invasive and were fire prone.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I guess just back to calendaring a workshop, that this land cover and tree canopy, these are, I think, top of mind for the community, for the commission, for you, and we saw it in not only the surveys that Davey did, but also in the survey from CRA in terms of what the villages, how they're speaking and what they care about it. So great opportunity to get back in front of the community and reinforce what the data is suggesting about the canopy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
that
it.
makes sense.
And then from that, I think there can be some tangibles that are discussed in terms of what the palette looks like, and why not be able to, interject about, hey, let's not forget about our views, and let's not forget about those of us that want to have solar power, et cetera, right? So, but a workshop schedule would be fantastic. I think we're all in agreement there on that.
Okay.
But is there more of this 1B that you'd like to dig into for us before I'd like to probably open it up for some public comment? I don't want to cut you off if you're.
I'm on page 7, but let me hit some highlights.
1B.1.
Perfect highlights.
There's
That's why I was asking about the process, because you're letting us interject, and I think we're holding you back.
There's some more highlights coming.
oh man,
We've read
really,
so-
there's just it's a little bit dry. So I'm just gonna go. If we're gonna, to kind of masticate everything, not quite but if we're really getting in deep discussions, I don't want to have this go on forever. So I just want to again hit some of the bigger highlights.
Is this report on the website?
No, not yet, but it was in the
I know it was in the agenda packet that we got. I'm just thinking for the public,
Yes, we
right?
need
We
to
should have
set
it.
up
We
a-
should set up a link so that people
Yes.
could see
Okay.
this. It's a
Yes.
good report. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very
No,
comprehensive.
we'll put it up on
Yeah.
the forestry website.
Okay.
I really
That's a
like
good comment.
I like page 20 where it's giving the tree canopy in comparison to other communities.
That was the big like.
It's
reveal.
especially for those of us that live here and go to PG, for instance, where the coverage is 28.5%. I think you can really feel that,
Yeah.
versus here. And so I think those are powerful. That's powerful.
This
data.
page was probably the biggest one, showing that we're equal to Palo Alto, which is a city that's really known, as being upscale, and the trees are really nice, and you really feel the greenery when you're there. And I think that
They do have a huge variety.
they have a lot of trees. They're big, beautiful, healthy trees.
Do you think they have more than 200?
Probably.
San Francisco has 3,000 tree species.
That's right.
Wow. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Then
How about
really
the
that was
health,
kind
the health of the trees?
Yes.
I think that was a biggie.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Page 21.
Thank you. Oh, perfect.
I have one question. If we could go to page 24,
Almost there. Work on our way there. We're on
Okay.
21. We'll work our way back. So, one of another one going for is that majority of the trees are good or very good or fair, and fair can mean a lot of different things, as we've seen. If you look up what fair trees look like in the city, they can be on the good side or on the poor side. But the fact that over 50% of the trees are in good or very good condition is a good benefit. But the problem is the percentage of the trees in poor condition. I think that you see them more because they're a lot of the big pines, and they're just more in your face. So the really nice, healthy, beautiful oaks and the young, strong Monterey pines don't stand out as much as the very large, dying pines. But the canopy is in a fairly good place, and when we remove the dead and dying pines and start planting more healthy young trees, all it can do is get better.
This is a just question of the most recent storm that you're still managing, I know, but were the trees that fell, I saw a lot of pines that were down, or the trees that fell, would they be in this poor and critical category in your opinion? Or do you think
I would say they'd
some of
probably
them,
be good to very good, because
the ones that fell?
the healthier trees have a bigger canopy and they catch more wind. A lot of the dead and dying pines stand longer.
unfortunately.
They tend to fragment apart, and then they can spread the bark beetles. That's why we want to get them out, because they spread the pests that can kill the other healthy trees. But that's the problem that I think I brought up last time, that our street trees don't look like Monterey. We don't have 20-foot tall maples and And sycamores, we have 100-foot tall pines. So, you know, regular pruning schedule is just so much different than cities with more normal layouts and street trees. So that's kind of one of the hard, unique things about the city, is that not only are these trees so big for their growing space, like some of these large pines downtown in like a 4-foot cutout, that it's hard to maintain the level of keep the level of maintenance that's needed for the street trees, because one street with 4 mature pines would take, you know, several weeks versus a day or
Right.
2 days for smaller cities.
I think Commissioner Burling was interested in page 24.
Just because I was having trouble figuring out kind of the pink of low and the whatever color it is of high. But I think now I can see where the high is.
To be fair, I put a question mark on this one too. It's kind of hard to see on this scale
Yeah.
of where the planting areas are.
Yeah.
I don't see any very high. I don't know what the
But it looks
Red.
like maybe
The
the.
Kind of feels like
Where it's red.
darker
downtown
oranges.
and Junipero kind of.
yeah, the
And
red
then up
doesn't really
towards
look
this
like
red
the purple
part.
on the left is my main thing.
No,
Yeah.
the red is the
Actually-
very high
Yeah.
priority planting.
So there are
Orange is very high, the
The high
red is
is
very low.
orange, no, red.
You have it backwards.
Red is very high.
Red is very high priority
It's just a
planting.
Got
bad-
it.
It's just,
Okay.
And
it's
purple
just a
is
bad
very
color. It didn't really come out very.
Oh, you think,
No, just
think that's it?
That's this one, yeah.
Oh, but it looks like the.
I know, it didn't match
The very
up.
low
There's
is,
a lot of
I
space.
got it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, so you're on page 27.
Yay.
I bet. So yeah, going to the tree planting opportunities that they had said, that there are a lot of spaces. Sorry about that. That, yeah. There are spaces, but we have to make sure, we have to really decide what makes sense. And it's even just this, there's a section under zoning, under where the trees are and where the trees could be planted, that even that isn't the same, because single-family residential in the north part of town is different than in the southwest versus the southeast versus the northeast. So we do need input and to get a consensus, or not even consensus, just an idea of where we want to go with the tree planting and reforestation and baseline forestation in general. That is definitely agree with you on that.
Right, because if you're going to take out 15% of your poor to critical health trees, what's the actual impact to the percentage of the canopy at that point? Does it go from 38 to 34 to 32? I don't know what that number is, but so how are you backfilling the reforestation?
Yeah, so we would have to see, what the goal is. Do we want to keep it at 36, or do we want to go down to 32, or up? Sorry, just saying. Don't hold me to it.
No,
I'm just saying
for
because,
discussion.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
again, the what we're seeing of the poor and very poor, those are just the city trees. So that is 40% of the total population. So 15% is not going to be 15%. So I think that we should, decide what the goal is totally, the end game, and whether do we want to keep more on the private? Do we want to stick with this density guideline that is gospel of that can be a lot, or do we want to, keep kind of what is on a property as it is, and instead of making them replant 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 to get up to density, we decide what we want overall as a replacement and as an overall goal for the city.
1A and 1B presentations, I think, are really great for just that discussion. So excited to get that into a workshop one more time. How about we open it up to public comment, if
I think
that's
it's a good
okay
idea.
with you? I'll go to chambers first. If there's anyone here in chambers that would like to make public comment in regards to the portion 1B that was presented, which is the canopy. Doesn't look like it here. How about online? Is there anyone? I don't currently see anything, so I don't know. There is. Oh, everybody's got their hands up. Well, we don't see it, but that's okay.
Where is it?
If you want to go ahead and call it out.
Scott's one Waterground? Who?
Okay, well, we can go with Scott first. Scott, you're on the air.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thanks. One thing I'm just thinking about is how we might want to include expert input into things like canopy selection or how we might approach it. I think it's great to include the input from the residents, but I would include myself in this. I wouldn't want to be the person making some of these decisions, or at least would want to have the benefit of what experts might say. For example, they might say one strategy is to diversify the canopy so that we are more likely to have a healthy canopy long term, and they could tell us potentially what species for our situation might be best. They can take things into account like hydrology, which is very different, and soil, which is very different in different parts of the town. Some parts of Carmel extremely sandy, other parts have more clay, et cetera. So I would I'm hoping, and maybe this is in the plan, that we would incorporate that kind of expert opinion. And I know I could really benefit from hearing from them and thinking about different strategies that could take some of these complex topics into account, everything from climate change, soil condition, hydrology, and give us some alternatives that would allow us as residents to then hopefully make, more informed opinions about what we may want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We'll go ahead to Ms. Cindy Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Cindy Lloyd. I would like to just dovetail on what Scott said. Those are real considerations. The other thing that I would think should factor into it is the growth rate of some of these trees. If you have a cypress tree that grows really fast and spreads really wide next to a slower growing tree, the cypress is eventually going to overshadow this smaller tree or a slower growing tree and stunt its growth, if not completely kill it out. So I know that there are a lot of variables that go into it, and I agree with Scott that public input can be from a kind of personal aesthetics and preference, but not particularly scientific. So I think you've got a big task ahead of you, and be more than happy to weigh in wherever my voice might be useful, but I certainly am not going to dictate however the plan goes forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And then let's see, Nancy, or maybe it's Tim. I don't know.
Yep. Me again.
Hello, Nancy.
Yes. You were speaking amongst yourselves about, how to best engage the public as you progress down this path towards a completed draft. And I would like to suggest that maybe having whoever is the right expert, but a right tree expert that can speak to the tree varieties, their attributes, their fit, given the comments from the prior two folks who just spoke, Cindy included, and Scott, that there just be a session that just is more educational and interactive on the different tree varieties and pluses and minuses. I, for instance, have been told that the pine trees have a shallower root system. They really benefit from being clustered, and that coastal oaks have a deeper root structure and are lower height, of course, but I don't know if that's fact or fiction, and of course I could, dig into the internet and beyond for some self-educating, but I think doing an in-person session with the relevant experts to talk and just, again, be interactive with those who choose to participate, to be more informed on the different pluses and minuses and benefits to trees, including the comments, again, that Scott and Cindy had just made. So recommendation for your consideration. Thanks.
Thanks, Nancy. We'll go ahead and close public comment. I don't know of commissioners who might have attended. Friends of the Forest did that really great presentation on our local trees and opportunities for species about, I don't know, 6 months ago. Gosh, it was really informative and educational. It was held over at the kind of that Carpenter Center.
Hall.
Yep. Anyway, I wonder if they recorded that. So I guess we might be able to move on. I don't think
that we need a voter action.
Yeah,
do
this
we?
is just for
this was
Perfect.
just for, yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Okay, now we get to the fun stuff.
Good.
Thank you. Let's see, continuing on in orders of business. Oh, we're going to receive a demonstration of the Tree Keeper, the digital tree inventory program. This is great.
Oh. So this is Tree Keeper, our software that we use to inventory the 10,000 plus trees in the city. So, just for an example, someone pick an address or a location.
Dolores in second. Dolores in first.
Oh.
Where the tree fell. Right, yeah, right in there.
So we have a 30-inch pine that they're calling good condition in the public right-of-way.
Those are the ones.
We can bring up the tree, its coordinates, its any comments or defects, and in certain trees, if they have them, we can find work histories. Lots of data is kept in this system. Here we go. This was a tree on the corner of Vista and Mission that Topes just removed 2 weeks ago. So I go into the work information and I see that there is a removal scheduled to do with the bucket truck, the aerial, the size, and who to do it. We can send these to our tree contractors, or I can print them out with a picture and give them to the in-house tree crew to do any kind of maintenance that we need to do. So when we bring up the tree point, not only do we see the point, like the aerial view, it also has a geolocated Google Street View that this is the tree that they cut down.
Pretty great. Mm-hmm. It's impressive.
I guess that was pretty much.
What's a red dot?
Thank you, Bob. Red dots are trees that we input, and usually, red dots will be private locations where we can find a history of permits. I'm trying to find one that I've done, but we can mark it as an inspection point. And when we go into the work, sorry to air the dirty laundry, but we can put we can put a red tag, we can put tree inspection requested, person called, and in this we can write notes that I didn't know if that was sensitive, but we can write our notes for talked to this person. They requested us to look at a specific issue, and we can really build them up going all the way back, especially people that have applied for multiple permits. When we issue a permit, we'll put permit issued, permit issue 23147, permit issued for pruning to Monterey Pines, replant X amount, or not for pruning, but for removals, replanting requirements. It's really is a powerful tool to keep a lot of information straight. And it goes back, I think, several years. It's through Davie Resource Group is the people who do it, the people that are doing the master plan. So they did their inventory in it, but I know that the previous city forester got it ahead of time because I saw her on site one time and she showed it to me back when I was consulting, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So it's really, you can mark down almost anything that we need to do in terms of keeping track of trees. We can do it in this software.
So how many red dots do we have? Because those would be all private trees, right?
There's sites, so they're not just trees. So
Okay.
that's not measured the same.
Okay, so it's not like, okay.
Because see that they're on a house or something.
Okay,
So it's hard to see on the, oh, you can see it on here, that there'll be outlines of houses.
right.
And there could be
Multiple
multiple,
trees.
yeah,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
So is it a tree that's come to your attention, the red ones?
No, it's one that we put in that's not a public. It's like it's usually an inspection point on a private property is red, because they'll be off. The green ones are all centered around the right of ways. The red ones are on actual private property.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we can keep track of citizen interaction and permit review and such.
What's blue?
Blue are the median islands, and there's only like a handful of them.
Okay. And access to this is for city only? This is not public access, or is
No, not at this time.
I
don't-
can't touch it.
No,
Is it a Davie, is it a software of Davie?
They developed the software.
Oh.
And we pay an annual fee to have it.
Yeah, we pay a licensing fee as software works. But yeah, any other questions?
I don't think
Open it up.
so. Open it up to public comment about the presentation made on the tree keeper. No one in chambers, taking it online. I saw Cindy Lloyd's hand come up. Cindy, yes, go ahead.
Third time's a charm. Thank you very much for taking my comments. I think this is an amazing tool. I cannot believe that this kind of thing exists, but then that's maybe showing my age. So great, Justin. That was just wonderful to listen to all the data that you can collect and input and have on hand for a tree. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Cindy.
Go ahead and close the public comment, and then we'll move on in orders of business to just this Justin show. We're gonna get the city foresters report
All day long.
all day long. I'm here all day.
All right, so the January 24 Foresters Report, as we've gone over ad nauseum, the Davie Resource Group Urban Forest Master Plan draft is almost there, and hopefully we should have it this month to start rolling out the final product soon. Last month, the forestry crews planted 14 trees, removed 8 dead or hazardous trees, pruned 14 trees, and removed 1 stump. We pruned overgrown acacia at the viewing deck at the Del Mar parking lot. Per the request of the traffic committee, I believe, we went around and cleared a fair amount of stop signs. I don't have an exact number, but they drove around for 2 days and just cleared stop signs. We got to a lot of logs that PG&E left because their crews are told to just chip things 4 inches and under. And so if you see logs on the side of the road, it's not us. It is PG&E leaving trees behind because that's just what they do. Our crew got 2 new trucks that they're starting to drive around. If you see the forestry crews in brand new trucks, it's finally something that is appropriate for the work we do, We deal with a lot of large branches and brush, and they do a lot of work, and those old trucks were very undersized and just old. So it's really nice to have the crews in modern trucks. The tree contractors removed 4 large stumps and 14 dead or dying trees under our task orders, and landscape maintenance continued under the town and country landscape contractor at key areas of the city like the beach and Del Mar and the scenic pathway. And I guess not last week anymore, but the forestry staff, me including, and all the crew members went to a seminar in Menlo Park on urban forestry, plant health in regards to tree failure and tree health, and also emerging technology. And I think that was really good for the guys to see that, to learn about, you know, what makes trees healthy and more prone to failure, and also the technology that's out there for us to take advantage of, including drones and LiDAR and different, you know, high-level stuff that's really cool. And, you know, most important stuff, we got our analyst, Tom Ford, back from paternity leave after his wife, Michelle, gave birth to their son, Jason Sergio Ford, in November.
Yay! Welcome back, Tom.
If I may, Justin, 2 more things before we go into the graphs. Can you briefly talk about the public nuisance tree that will be going directly to the city council in March? Just real briefly.
Yes.
And then also a storm statistic, or maybe at the end, update on the storms? So,
okay.
Go ahead.
So, what was the first one? Sorry. Nuisance tree. We have a report, a recommendation going to City Council in March for a tree at 11th and Casanova, I believe, that's been dead for a very long time. We've had calls from multiple neighbors complaining about the tree, but it is on private property on a vacant lot that was a burned down house 20 years ago. Many people might be familiar with the area, and we had tried to reach out to the owner and we couldn't find a usable address, so we're going through the process of declaring it a public nuisance to have the city remove, and we will levy against the property taxes, I believe, because it's a dead tree leaning towards the road that we're going through the process of getting out. Okay.
And storm statistics are like
that.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go through my normal spiel here. We received 17 tree permits in January, issued 12, and 1 site inspection. 4 trees pruned, 8 trees removed under those permits, with 6 trees being required to replant.
Are we still okay about having dialogue through your presentation, or would you like us to wait till the end of your presentation?
I'm good.
Okay,
Whatever.
I just want to make sure procedurally how you... So I just had a question, because
Yes.
there was a statement made earlier today in public comments in regards to site inspection and permit for one
Yes.
in hand. And so I'm seeing here that you received 17 permits, you issued 12, but you only had 1 site inspection. So to understand what that process is?
Yeah, that's a great way to bring that up. So we brought about the tree inspection, basically a permit, but not an issuable permit. It's a $195 fee to have the city forester come out and look at your tree or trees. It's what it is it's a fee to cover staff costs, but also comparable to what you would pay a consulting arborist an hour. That's about what I would charge when I was consulting. So when I go out for these, they're not like a normal removal application. I don't just go look at the one tree you want me to look at. I make an appointment, I show up, and we'll look at the tree, but then also I look at it like they're paying for an hour of time. So then we go on and go, okay, what else do you want to look at? And I'll walk the property with the residents. We'll go over anything that they want to look at, and then from that, if they want to remove the tree or other trees that we find, or do pruning that would require a permit, that $195 gets rolled into the final permit fee and subtracted. So the net following up for removal would be $400 something, not $800 total.
I recall when we went through and we established a fee for that. I think at the time, remembering back from our previous forester, she was being requested at so many different sites. Right. And so I think there was an attempt to be able to capture that. At the same time, I just want to, again, so that site inspection that is performed, that's requested. Is that?
Yes.
Is that, and so when someone puts a permit in there, they fill their permit out, they might include pictures or whatever else is necessary. You might follow up with questions, but not necessarily required to go to site.
I go to the site for every permit, but the site inspection is just a different one with a little bit different level of scrutiny. But because some people too, that they might know that it's not going to get approved, so they're going to look at they're not going to want to go through the full. They're going to pay a tree removal permit. It's like, if I pay the $660, I'm not going to get that back if I get denied. But if I only pay $195 and I go out there and the city forester makes a point where it's, oh, maybe the tree's not dangerous, then, and I just prune it, you have that option. It's more of a filter to start going forward instead of just putting the money up front.
You didn't set the $695 or what that fee is, right?
Especially when the fees increased, it helped mitigate some of the increased costs because you could have a lower fee to figure out what you want to do instead of just putting the money up front and getting denied for a removal permit.
Okay, and so just one more time for clarification, if you are asked to come out to a site to inspect it, and you do, and you provide that hour's worth of time, however you see fit in that, and then that homeowner goes ahead and puts a permit, applies for a permit to be removed, for something to be removed.
Yes.
That $195 gets credited.
Or either credited, or you could say, or deducted from the final tree removal permit fee is what it is. It's never going to be more than that, and it'll be, you could either pay that up front, or you could pay $195 and then the difference up to.
So you wouldn't pay for both in full?
No.
Got it. Okay, thanks. I appreciate the clarification and also the explanation. Thank you.
Of course.
Sorry.
Can I say one thing? I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great service. Is that clear to our community that that's how it works?
Well,
when they go to get a permit, or if is that clear? Because I think that's an incredible service.
I don't know if it's clear yet because it's pretty new, relatively.
Right.
But I know that permitting and planning has been trying to advise people of that.
Okay.
Because we've been getting a lot of them because people don't necessarily want to pay the money up front if they don't know. Right. But I definitely have been on some that people just are worried about their sick tree. And then
Can we put that up on our site? Can we put that on the site with the permits, so when people go, they can get the information I see, Tom?
It's there,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not clear because it was presented today that both were actually.
Right. So maybe we can, now that Tom's back. Thank you. No, that's great. I'm happy to hear that.
It is interesting, though, if you think about the cost of tree removals, just generally, that for where you have a clear, like, dead, dying tree, right? $665 still sounds like a lot of money just for a permit to try and get rid of something that actually is reducing wildfire risk, reducing beetle bark trends, right? Like, so it's
the dead
we
tree,
want people removing dead trees,
Absolutely.
right?
the dead trees especially.
Let me explain how the fees are set. It's not random numbers, and in fact, they're discounted by council. So what we do is now that we have the tree evaluation service as a separate permit, tree pruning permit, tree removal permit, and maybe whatever else. As encroachment, we have all kinds of fees. So for every one of those fees, we identify every person who would be involved. A city forester, 1 hour and a half. Administrative analyst, 0.25 hour, or permit technicians.
Right.
So every single person, they're fully burdened hourly rate, so that's their salary, benefits, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And it goes through an accounting service. So there's every single one of these has a fee, and we put in all the hours, and it's scrutinized, and it's checked, and like, what do you mean an hour? Isn't it more like 45 minutes? You're right, it's more like 45, okay.
Right.
So we do our best estimate. When we went to the city council for the fee update, people from the community did object to, gosh, our fees are high. Some of them are much higher, or somewhat higher than other agencies, nearby local agencies.
Right.
And council made the decision, okay, for these tree permits, we will discount it, I forget, and I think I mentioned this here, 50% or 10%, whatever it was. So these are discounted rates. So in essence, the city is subsidizing those people who are pulling the permits. Yes, it might be high, but it reflects the best estimate. Some of these, sometimes, like Justin was saying, there might be 3 trees for the same price. Maybe that person's getting away with murder, and then the next one has to pay the same fee for dead little tree. It's a slam dunk.
Right.
We can't have thousands of different permits for different types of things. So we take the average of all the different service, things that tie in. And like what Justin was saying, even if it's a dead little tree, you have to log it into Tree Keeper, iWorks. You have to go to the site. You have to meet with the person sometimes. You have to log it in. You have to find parking, which is going to be a half hour. Come back, log it in, put notes.
He could just ride his electric bike.
What's that? Or he could ride his bike, yeah. As Tom did today with his helmet. But so even the most simple permits, there's still some time involved.
The site inspection is incredible because you can apply that. That I'm sure for a homeowner is a great thing.
And
knowing that they are probably going to get a permit, that's not a lost value on them. They can take that $195 and apply it to the permit that they.
And it's not
or
just.
pay the $195 if you say this is a living tree.
And I've given a lot of other stuff too, like how to make trees healthier and just a dialogue about their trees, because some people just want to learn about their trees, and that's.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I think that's great. I think we should publicize that. So that's a great service.
And if I may, some people are upset. People who've been in town for a long time, they used to simply call the forester and say, "quote, I just have a tree to take. Could you take a quick look?
I remember that.
Take a quick look at this, please." And we did.
Mm-hmm.
And we did again and again and again and again and again. And like, well, where's all the forester time going? It's going to look at private trees.
Right.
So that's why we made the recommendation to council, hey, should we start charging this a smaller fee? That's how we got there.
Right.
So some people used to pay nothing.
Yeah.
Now they're paying $105 or whatever.
Well, and I think the council, they chose to not enforce the full accounting that you guys had come up with, mainly because, these are city employees that are employed to do these tasks.
Right.
And so it was the burden that was being inundated that I think became, especially for the forester, right? It's being pulled, like you said, only for private when it's both public and private need. So I agree. I think it's good. Do you have the authority to waive a fee?
Yes.
You do.
Does
that include a permit as well? Or just your own?
You mean waive a permit in general, or
waive the fee for a permit? Do you, as a
we have done that. Extenuating circumstances or trees that were dangerous, and it just didn't seem like we were getting anywhere, and sometimes very elderly, people couldn't even leave their house, and we definitely have waived them, or some people we've enforced the old fee or something. We have flexibility, and the city forester can do that, and we have, in very rare cases, most people are capable of taking on the fee.
Yeah, and understanding that those dollars that you're collecting end up back in the general fund?
Yes.
Right.
Buy a new ambulance.
And get turned back around and used for public good, right? So I think those are really important messages, right? Buy a new ambulance, okay.
Or when the tree falls.
Too soon.
Okay, anything else on your graphs?
Not pretty much covered it. We only took in 81 calls from residents, calls and emails, and we responded to 80 of them. That's another one I'd like to touch on, that we really try to deal with at least the number that come in. We're really on it and try to be as responsive as possible.
That's great.
And Tom will, do you have the story? Oh. Is it in Bob's stuff? Maybe it's not.
What are we looking for?
The storm stats.
Oh.
Perfect. So, this is as of the meeting?
This morning.
A little bit before the meeting this morning. We tracked 43 trees that fell down, 8 trees taken down in active failure, 49 hangers or widowmakers, broken branches, 4 poles with wires down, 4 trees that we found that came in contact with a vehicle, both public and private trees, and then 7 trees or branches that have come in contact with a house.
I believe the house number is low. I believe 10 houses have been red tagged or restricted access or do not enter without repairs.
Because of trees.
Yeah.
Because of trees.
Okay, I don't know if we've gotten all those numbers from
building, yeah.
because there's some that we hadn't seen.
Right, and that's all a work in progress.
Yeah.
All of this is a work in progress.
Yeah, okay.
And could you clarify the active tree failures versus the trees that fell? Does the 80 include the 42?
No, the ones that are taken down were trees that were swaying and I could see cracks in the soil and moving at the base, or someone sent a video in of the tree in active failure and the tree service was able to remove the tree before it fell.
And how many was that, sorry?
That was 8.
8. Oh, that's the
Oh, 8.
8 down, okay.
Oh, I thought it was 80.
The 80 was the
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
the trees with limbs and things was how many?
The hangers, 49.
49.
49.
The widowmakers.
Yeah.
Okay.
How does that compare versus the one from last year? I can't remember. I thought we had like over 100 trees down across both storms, right?
Across both storms, about 150, including Mission Trail.
Right.
There's 30 some there. So
I think we had, this was one storm. Last March, we had a series of storms for the month. So I think the 150 represents the whole month.
The whole month.
Yeah.
This represents just a couple
Just
of
the one,
days,
yeah.
yeah.
I wasn't staff at the time, but I remember I was working the March 8th and March 10th storms, and I think that that number sounds about right. Because there was more than one, plus you factor in the New Year's Day storm was also
Right.
devastating.
There were like 3.
There was and they're spread out. It was like we had, after the beginning of January, it's like, oh, we're okay, and then March was really, really bad.
We have 106 tree incidents logged in? 106.
You know, we have a tracking sheet where we track calls from residents, observations from staff driving around, and we call it back to Public Works, and we keep track of in a spreadsheet where we all know what's going on, and we mark when it's been dealt with, or if it's a private tree, or if we need to call somebody back, or we need to go pick up logs, we mark all that stuff down.
And that's all being entered into the tree keeper, right?
Yeah, it will be when we have time, but yes.
Gotcha.
Not branches.
Branches?
No, not
The trees themselves.
Trees that fell or trees that are removed.
Yeah, because I imagine you're being able to identify some hot spots, right? That
Yeah.
kind of keep coming back, right? From the commission, any other questions or comments about what Justin's just presented to us? Then I'm going to open it up for public comment. First, I'll look to chambers. I don't see anyone in chambers, so then I'll go to online. Looks like, Nancy, you've had your hand up for a while. It must hurt. Oh.
You bet. I just wanted to comment that when Sarah was here, she provided a URL to the tree keeper software that I believe is just, a view-only mode, so that it doesn't affect, editing or updating of anything. Obviously, that needs to be controlled by city staff. But that doesn't jive with what Justin had said. So, and I don't want to obviously encourage us to do something that messes with cost or licensing, but it would be good to get that clarified, whether or not that's that URL, and I can send it to Justin as a follow-up, but the one that Sarah had given me. So that should be clarified, because it'd be great if, again, folks who care and want to know if they could get into that tree keeper software and view whatever is relevant to areas that they're concerned about.
Thanks, Nancy. I do recall that Sarah had made that available. I thought more in a beta mode to show it off as an opportunity to discuss whether or not the city should go forward with actually utilizing it. That's how I recalled it at the time. But thank you for your comment. And then back into chambers. Melanie, would you? Oh, she does.
Justin, very good report. Bob, your report was really excellent too. That comes up next. But you talked about the historic permitted removals and required plantings. Could you tell me why we don't have information regarding natives? What kind of trees were removed, the numbers of them, and what kind of natives were removed? Like how many pines were removed and then replanted, and so on and so forth, coastal live oaks, etc. Can we do that?
We could. We don't track it on that level, but I could try to dig into that for at least the time I was here. Right now, we're just going with upper and lower canopy, for whatever people think of that. But that's what we're tracking, because there's just so it's just a level of data, especially with how many types of trees we have in the city.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked is because with the replantings, I'm noticing an awful lot of pepper trees and non-native trees going in where other trees have been removed, and that doesn't seem quite appropriate to me. I mean, our general plan and our current forestry plan, requires that we replant with our native trees to retain the native forest. So that's the only reason why I was curious. It's just so a bit of information to have.
I understand, and pretty much the removal of uppers are most likely going to be at least 80% pines and pine, cypresses, and redwoods, I would imagine, because we don't have a lot of other upper canopy trees here.
Yeah, one thing I've just noticed, though, correlating with what you've been talking about with the storms, is at least on the point, as well as some in town, a huge number of cypress, just with these enormous limbs being just torn to pieces. I mean, it's really the wind power must have been staggering for the size of some of these trees, limbs, and trees that came down. Thank you very much. Excellent report. You too, Bob.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public comment, and just any last comments from the commission for this report? Doesn't look like it, so we'll go ahead and our last order of business will be the, I don't know, maybe we should skip this one.
I think we should.
The Public Works
Adjournment sounds good.
Director's report for January 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, city council actions related to forestry, parks, and beach. Well, the city council canceled their meeting Tuesday night. What we were going to do, which was referred to in a couple of speakers was the Coastal Engineering Study Phase 2 amendment with our consultant group for $450,000, entirely funded by the Coastal Commission grant. So that was on the agenda. Yes, it was on consent. That's pushed now to the March 5th or whatever the next council meeting is. In that staff report, we are recommending to council reallocate $100,000 that would, city funding that would have gone to that to start phase 2. Now it's fully funded by others. The $100,000 will go to pay for beach stair repairs. And the item for Carmel Cares to accept the donations of $148,800 of goods and materials and 6,000 labor hours of donations. Council has officially accepted that. That was pushed to the March meeting as well. Related to all that, going back to the coastal, the local coastal programs grant agreement was approved by the Coastal Commission, 100% approved. We will get reimbursed up to $500,000, so that's good news. In terms of capital improvement projects, not much to report except, for the shoreline infrastructure repair project. So we worked with our consultant to prepare a request for proposal to hire an engineering firm with shoreline expertise. So the RFP is mostly written. What we're asking the consultant to do is to include the environmental work, not just the engineering and the technical work, the environmental and permitting work, because city staff nor our planning department have the capacity to do so. So that's going to be a consultant to do all of it. We just don't have the capacity in-house. So anyway, we're very close to issuing the RFP. In fact, I'll meet with them again tomorrow to try to wrap it up. Well, I'll leave it at that. Climate committee meetings, I think I mentioned earlier that climate committee meets next week. So I won't have to repeat that. Volunteer organizations. Carmel Cares installed a stone paver apron in front of the trash enclosures on the scenic pathway around 9th Avenue, if you saw that, so that's pretty cool. It's just ongoing working with the Garden Club, with Friends of Carmel Forest, with the Friends of Mission Trail Nature Preserve. Things are going well. And 7 miscellaneous items. Oh, we already talked about this. So the police chief, Tomasi, will be here next month to talk about how we close the beach. We issued a purchase order to Joey Canepa Native Solutions to oversee the volunteers at the North Dunes restoration when they pull weeds. So we have a different consultant, Denise Stephanie Associates, preparing the technical reports, the transects, the quantifying how the habitat is restoring itself. But we did need help on overseeing volunteers, and Joey is an expert in that area. So we kind of reduced her scope and issued her permits, so she's off and running on that, which is good. We had an outstanding Cal-Am water bill during the winter months. Usually our bill is about $13,000. We had $22,000. So we tracked it to a leak in a urinal, a fire hydrant that was hit by a truck that lost a lot of water, and the garden club at the Native Plant Garden. So we were talking to those folks, trying to trim them back a little bit. Forest Theater, it's in the report, but just kind of wanted to recap 6 months worth of activities. So between April and June last year, Forest Theater had 37 performances, a total attendance of 2,637 people, and they paid city facility fees of $2,506. Now again, this is not really forestry per se, but this is a public park. So this is as close to the park commission that we have right here. And then between July and September, there was 44 performances, total attendance of 10,917, it's a lot, and a city fees of $8,247. So that was a very successful summer. The 4th Avenue, 10th Avenue, 12th Avenue, Martin Way stairs, and the equipment ramp south of 8th Avenue will be closed until further notice. No change there. And down at the Mission Trail Nature Preserve at Rio Road, there's the entry gate. We refabbed the entry gate. It looks good as new. You saw that? Okay. Looks good as actually with salvaged parts. We cut and pasted from another, an old gate and painted. It looks as good as new. That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone from the commission with questions about our director's report?
No questions, but I saw a couple of trees came down at the Forest Theater
Yes,
over the storm.
they sure
Were
did.
they cypress or were they pines?
One cypress fell that blocked Mountain View.
Yeah.
And then that pine fell across
Inside
the power lines.
Okay.
So 2 that I saw, or the cypress might have been either double stem or 2 cypresses that fell. They were kind of joined and
Yeah,
then
I
they
saw
split.
Okay. Okay.
And they were, both trees were healthy.
I
There's
know,
so
I
much
was
water that
shocked.
comes through there. If you ever
Yeah, that's
get a
what-
chance to look kind of at that upper
Yeah.
part of the parking lot, there's like rushes and stuff. It's almost like a wetland.
Right.
There's so much water
Oh, yeah.
that comes through.
So they were just saturated with water when the wind hit. Yeah, I was wondering because they looked healthy. So, okay. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Bob, you had this 100,000 for the stairwell that you mentioned. Didn't you get, I thought maybe, was it 150 already that you'd already allocated, or?
We have 250,000.
250
So now we're up to, as soon as council officially makes that happen, that's 350.
for the, specifically
Right, and
for
we're
the
about to
stairs.
launch the RFP to hire a consultant to begin the design of the stair repairs.
Got it, okay,
Long ways to go,
got it.
but it's underway.
Okay, I was just.
The stairs are being damaged faster than we can fix
I'm
it.
just putting the math together, so it was 100 more to the 250
Yeah,
that you
no, it
already
helps.
had.
And then and if I may, maybe this is the appropriate time. At the March council meeting, it's the first go-around of the capital improvement program for potential new projects. There's a whole lot of carryover projects. The needs far outweigh the available funding. I had every intention to ask for as much as humanly possible for beach repairs. They told me to sit down, but if there's anything else, we already have the urban forest master plans funded, so we're good there. Even though we're not going to get reimbursed from the CAL FIRE grant, we shuffled some money within the CIP fund, so we have funding there. There was no other capital project tentative for next fiscal year, but if the commission has any ideas, now would be a great time to make a suggestion, whether or not it's funded, but I can certainly present it. And I know, kind of last minute here, but you have a minute.
So we can email you.
You can, of course, over the next, I say 2 weeks, because I need to start wrapping it up. Okay, so any ideas for capital projects?
Okay, thanks.
If a volunteer organization stepped forward to address 1 or 2 of the beach access points, since we have none right now, would that, would we be able to proceed with that?
If they can go through the environmental permit process, absolutely.
Was there an environmental permit process required for the guard railing along Scenic?
No, that was done administratively with city staff.
And
The coastal commission did not have to weigh in on the guardrail.
what causes is there any exception, ability to get an exception for any access point since there's none?
I don't know.
It's
I don't know.
worth considering.
And that kind
Like
of
an
ties
emergency
in with
sort of a permit or something?
the revetments and the seawalls, when we have this consultant.
I understand.
There's a lot of environmental issues involved, and that's why we don't, well, maybe we have the technical expertise, we don't have the capacity. But this is not something, I don't envision a volunteer group going out there with a bunch of hammers and nails and fixing the stairs. It would be nice if they could, but we have to do the environmental building permit process and so on and so forth to get to that point.
I think the challenge is that there's just so much deferred capital maintenance that there's millions upon millions of dollars that need to be invested in the future at some point when all these projects get done. And in the meantime, there's nothing, right? I think that's the hard part right now. Like, you can walk along Scenic, which has a nice guardrail and, you know, beautiful lookouts, but every single set of stairs, you know, especially with the water up right now, and yet it's in some ways it's surprising that the city continues to advertise as much as they're advertising on television right now. Come to Carmel-by-the-Sea. You know, we have the best beach in California. When
I don't think
we don't even.
The city doesn't do that. Like Visit Carmel does. Like there's.
No. But I'm just saying, if you see the it's on pretty heavy weights right now, right? Yeah. And people can't even. How do you say? People are accessing the beach, but we're not making it easy.
At one of the public meetings regarding the police station, different project, there was some talk about the deferred maintenance. Our city buildings, that's just the police building. Several of our buildings have a lot of deferred maintenance.
Right.
Our streets are certainly our storm drains, right? Our sidewalks,
Trees.
Our beach. Got enough. We have too many trees. But, no, we have a lot of deferred maintenance, and there's only so much funding available. So that's the conundrum that the council is facing.
If they're
as we come up to the new CIP budget.
So it says tomorrow, right at 1:30, the council is going to consider adopting the resolution 2024-013, ratifying the amended proclamation of existence of a local emergency due to the 2024 February winter storms events. I mean, is that a window of opportunity that we're able to circumvent all of these steps that have to be taken and actually get some people down and fix the existing stairs from the jacks and things like that are there? I mean, kind of keeping it together.
That's a legal question. I think the answer is no. I think that proclamation allows us to seek federal and state funding, which we haven't been very successful in the past on FEMA anyway. But that's the first step to even begin to request external funding. And it also allows us to not necessarily have to follow all the steps of the public contract or the purchasing policy, our purchasing policy. It doesn't mean we can ignore California, CEQA, the Environmental Quality Act.
And the Coastal Act. Knowing the Coastal Commission, probably not. When the storms came through in 2019 and 2023, you still weren't allowed to cut down cypress trees on 17 Mile Drive. So the Coastal Commission's pretty firm on those kind of things.
I certainly think it'd be worth exploring.
Of course,
I mean, repairing a stairway for public access to a public beach.
If we had the plans, building permit ready plans to repair the stairs, and that's just wing it with the hammer. If we had the plans, permit ready, some funding, and the environmental documents and Coastal Commission, everybody's approval, and then we declared the emergency, boom, we don't have to go out to formal bid. We can bypass that and just contractor number one, can you get here tomorrow? So that would expedite things. But we don't have plans. We don't have a lot of this stuff.
Got it. So that's why there was a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So not volunteering Carmel Cares on this, but Dale did mention that the guy who built the stairs is on their team. I mean, he's built them in the past. If they raised funds, I'm just speculating, if they raised funds and they have him, could they come in and if they went through the permit process and had
permit and environmental process,
funding and whatever they needed to do.
Right.
That's something then that we could look at doing just to expedite the process if they're able to do that. And since they have the person who built the stairs years ago who's on their team right now.
We're missing the plans, right? That was the.
There's some of that is legal. We're getting into some legal questions. And
Surely where there's a will, there's a way, right? I
Shirley
think this
Moon?
is, no, I would just say,
Shirley.
I said surely there's, where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, it feels like rather, I think the process is gonna be the process, right? And it's gonna be very expensive, and it's probably gonna be a 3 to 5 year kind of thing. In the meantime, we need to have a way for people to get safely on and off the beach, because if you watch how people get on and off right now, I mean, I know there's a sign that says, oh, the beach is closed, so they're doing it at their own risk, but you know, someone's gonna get hurt, right? Because these, you know, there's some pretty big jumps, right?
Is there any provision for short-term emergency? You know, we would of course need to make sure that they're safe, but is there something that could be done so we're not waiting 2 or 3 years until we get stairs back? You know, something like a process that of course is safe, but we have the man who built the stairs, I don't even know what, 30, 40 years ago. They've obviously lasted. I'm just.
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
It's kind of like that emergency slide. Let's take it to public comment.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and take public comment, open up to chambers. Doesn't look like there's anyone from chambers. So looking online, it doesn't look as if there's anyone online. So we'll close public comment, which moves us along to future agenda items. Does anyone have anything in particular? Certainly there are some things that were brought up today during public comment that could be considered. I don't know, opening up the floor.
I think it was helpful to hear the public comments that were made at the opening of the meeting. I thought they were thoughtful and lots of concern about our beach, which I think many of us share. I'm just wondering if it would make sense also to have some sort of public workshop on the beach, you know, helping people understand the process, understanding the consultant, just what the approach is that the city has to shore up, right? What the city's plan is, and to seek community input, right? We might find ourselves with some really good ideas. We might find some people who would step forward and volunteer. You know, it sounds like we're missing expertise about how to get things done with the California Coastal Commission. Like it seems like we've bumped into, when it comes to the beach, you know, the day the presentation was done on the beach plan, it seemed like there were still questions, you know, that we didn't have a complete understanding on how this, the state and federal come together in our marine sanctuary, and trying to understand, learning more about that, I think could be really useful for this group.
The consultant for the coastal engineering study phase 2, the $450,000 includes quite a bit of public outreach, public meetings, surveys, website, that type of thing. So there'll be a bunch of that, but it's a step in the right direction.
I'd ask that, I know that you said it's being pushed off since our police chief was not able to make it, but I'm a little disappointed that at least the material wasn't presented at this, regardless that he couldn't be present. I would have liked something from his staff to have been shared with us, so I'd ask that it definitely makes the agenda, whether or not he can or cannot attend.
Okay.
That something is presented for us, because I think that is part of kind of this workshop, but just there's definitely a lot of questions about like, hey, what's happening on the beach, and how is it that the city of Monterey is doing this and we're not doing, anyway, we've been asking, and I think it seems fair. Is there anything else? No? Anything from you?
Nope.
Well, 5:15. Jerry, you don't even know.
No,
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you very much.